Hello, everyone. You're welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Yemisi, and I'm so excited today because we have a wonderful person in the house, Dr. Ndubuisi Egwin, the founder of Money Wise Doctor. He's a UK based GP, an entrepreneur, an investor. He's got so many hats, but today he's going to have his financial consultant hat on. He's a founder of Money Wise Doctor, where they support healthcare professionals here in the UK. He's an author of two wonderful books. I'm going to share the link in the description below, and it is free on the MoneyWise Doctor website. And so, if you're new here, hit the subscription button, and you're going to be getting a lot of financial nuggets from Dr. ND. He's fondly called Dr. ND. Financial nuggets, mortgage nuggets here today. So stay tuned as we get on this interview with Dr. ND. Thank you very much, Dr. ND. You're welcome. Today we're going to be having financial insights for immigrants. And we are so excited that we have you to talk to us about it. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Yams. Thank you for what you're doing with your YouTube channel. And a lot of times, what you need is a bit of light, guidance, where to go. And what you guys are doing with that YouTube channel is just simply marvelous. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So let's hop to it. If you see me having to look down, I'm just trying to make sure we ask the right questions for Dr. ND to give us the wonderful answer. So can you just tell us a bit about how, as an immigrant, how can we build financial foundation to achieve financial freedom in the UK?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. I think it all depends. We all start from different places, isn't it?
Yes.
When we land. But something is common with almost every one of us as an immigrant. You are from a different credit system. A lot of times, for instance, if you've come from a different country like Nigeria, Pakistan, or India, you probably don't have the same credit system as you get in the UK, where you don't know about credit scores, you don't know about things like paying the credit cards, you don't know about things like mortgages and all that. So I think the first thing to start with will be ensuring that you have a good credit, because without that, you can hardly do a lot of things. And then the next thing is obvious. Obviously, get a bank account. So you can get a bank account. And the third thing is, of course, you're going to have bills, making sure that those bills are being paid on time, either by direct debit or whatever you need to do. And then that should be the foundation. The next things you can look at things like investment or savings, or making sure that you are optimizing your taxes to make sure you're not paying more than usual. But if you get this baseline correct, then that will be the foundation from where you can then focus on other things depending on what you do.
Okay, so talking about credit score and all that, so how can one have a principle or say strategies? What strategies can one focus on actually to be able to be free financially? Because we know this Rishi Sunak economy is not smiling at all.
Yeah, so basically, I think that's two-part question. One is if you're looking at how to make sure that your credit is intact to help you to be able to, in case you need to, let's say, buy a house, or sometimes there are even jobs, high-level jobs you look at, you apply, and they're looking at your credit score because it sometimes tells people something about you. This person we are hiring to come and become like the chief financial officer of this company. Are their own finances in order? So one thing is, first of all, for credit score is making sure you even know what your credit score is. Where is it? Obviously, there are many websites like Experian, Equifax you can use to check your credit score. The second thing, obviously, is doing things like making sure that your bills are paid on time, setting them up by direct debit and all that. There's also making sure that you don't, wherever you live, making sure that you are registered for at the electoral register. These are like little things. I think we've done quite a detailed article on that on moneywise.com. But
Yeah.
basically, you want to make sure that all those things, these are like little things you need to get in place to make sure that your credit score is fine.
Mm.
But then talking about financial freedom, I think that in itself is a journey on its own.
Yeah.
Is you know, first of all, defining it, one would say is when you come to the point where you can actually afford not to work and you still be able to sustain your level of your lifestyle. So
Wow.
yeah, I think a lot of time people mix it up with being super rich. No, it means that if,
Mm.
like for instance, Dr. Yams, if in a month what you need to cover your mortgage, to cover your expenses, to cover everything for your family, if it's let's say let's just throw out a number 4,000.
Hmm.
It might be
Yeah.
more, it might be less. But basically,
Amen.
when you're financially free is when you get to the point where either your assets are able to generate enough income, whether it's your rental property or dividend from stock, or you have business that is actually able to now pay those stuff, even when you're not working, then
Mm.
that's the point where you're financially free. That means you now have the opportunity to decide what to do with your time. But if you're financially free when you're 36 or 37, most people will not then decide to go and sleep. They will probably say, no, I want to work on only things that give me, interest, things I'm interested
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's good. Wow, that's a very good one. So you become financially free when you get to a point where you have more than enough, I guess, to be able to spend, and then you're not in need of money, I guess. That's what the point is.
Exactly. I mean, more than enough, quite is a good definition. What I'll say is, more than enough means that you're not in debt, and also you are not in a place where if things go wrong, you suddenly find yourself in a tight financial corner.
Mm,
It doesn't mean that you probably be driving a Bugatti. You
mm,
might still be driving your old car, or you might be driving a newer car. But the whole point is that if you were to go, let's say, if you had to go years without working, or even if you had to go, let's say 12 months, let's start with 12 months, your your needs are met, they are covered, basically because you've gotten to that point where your resources can cover your day-to-day expenses. And if you're
yeah.
able to project it, let's say using the life expectancy in UK, which is about 87 or thereabout,
Mm,
depending on which side of UK you live. I live down in the southwest, so it's a little bit higher.
yeah.
Um, if you go by that, then if you're financially free, that means that whatever resources you have, if you invested it at the normal rate, it will be able to cover your living expenses. Obviously, if you increase your living expenses, for instance, if you decided that you no longer wanted to live in your house, I decided to then go and buy a big, massive palace, then you need to increase your resources to be able to cover it. Or you might
Yeah.
find out that your freedom might turn into bondage.
Bondage. Oh, wow. So good too. I love these nuggets already. And so while, we're thinking about financial freedom, so how can one really, create a budget and stick to it, especially when you're starting a financial journey? For most of us immigrants in this country, we're either students or a professional, or you've come in with your family. So how do you advise one to make a budget and stick to it?
Right. So budget is that dirty B word. People don't
Eh,
like to hear about budgets
I,
because
I I'm guilty.
are you guilty? Yeah, because human beings like freedom. They don't want to feel restricted. Yeah,
Mm,
but many years ago, I think I read a book when I was a teenager by Miles Monroe of blessed memory. Now, he
yeah.
called it the burden of freedom. So,
Mm,
yeah, when you think about budgets, rather than look at it as something that will make you sort of restricted, it's more like something that will make you free.
yeah.
So one, I think. there are several apps available online, and there are also templates that you can use. It doesn't matter. You can even use a piece of paper. It's just
Mm,
sitting down and finding out, because you can't really say you're financially free until you know what you can't really know what you're working towards to be financially free until
mm,
you know what is the actual budget you need to cover your living expenses. So
yeah,
that's an interesting question. So I'll
yeah,
say, first of all, if you sit down and you check, what do I need to pay for my mortgage or my rent? What do I need to pay for my car payment? If you have car payments, what do I
mm,
need to pay for? Different things. You sit down, put it all together, and that's why
mm,
using all these online apps could be quite
mm,
helpful. You capture council taxes, and then you probably add some money for entertainment contingencies that can
mm,
help you find out, okay, this is what I need baseline to live in the UK. I
yeah.
tend to suggest that you also add something I call a fund, which is sort of
Oh,
like free money that you can spend guilt free. And it doesn't have
mm,
to be massive. It could just be, for some people it's like £100, for other people it might be a few £1,000. But depending on what you earn, have a percentage of that. Then I also tend to suggest that you add something I call like a black tax. We know about black tax. So
mm-hmm,
you're not stressed out when you get a call from a relative or someone from from secondary school or primary school asking you, Dr. Yams, I need money to pay for my, oh, one bear wedding or something like that. or or maybe for somebody in the hospital. So if
mm-hmm,
you factor those things into your budget, then you can then have a number or have an idea of what it might cost you to run your day-to-day affairs, because you can't really be
mm,
going on any journey to financial freedom if you don't
mm,
really know what it costs you. Now, there are two ways to approach this. For some
mm,
people, they make a budget and then they stick to it. And for some other people, and I think I fall in that second class, we just first of all understand what the total amount you need is. But then at
mm-hmm,
the beginning of the month, you're not trying to pay everything one by one. You get
mm-hmm,
everything set up on direct debit. So at the
mm,
beginning of the month, it goes off. Everything that you need to pay has gone off. So
yeah,
that's with budget itself by force.
yes,
Now, one of the things they also budget is savings and investments. So that in
mm,
itself is automatic, is moving out into your investment account or
yeah,
into a separate savings account. So
yeah,
automatically you've made a budget without trying to say, oh, I'm going to stick to a budget and all that. Now, if
mm,
at the end of the day you still have some money left, then you might have some flexibility with that money. So that's an
mm-hmm,
alternative way to look at budgeting. The other
mm-hmm,
group of people are more disciplined than the rest of us. They might say,
yes,
well, I'm not, and I have a friend who is like that. He has spreadsheets and everything, but the average person can't do it. He might say, no, no, we're not going to spend more than £100 on groceries. That's what we planned. But I think it's easier to actually set it up automatically so that things happen automatically.
yeah,
And then what is left, you can then find some flexibility and see whether you might be able to then increase your savings and investment.
yeah.
It's a bit of a
Yeah.
long-winded answer, but I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. I think you and I are in the same category,
Mm.
people that do the direct debit.
Yeah,
Not really strict, and I'm trying
yeah.
hard to be more, I'm trying hard to stick more to my budget, I would say. So yeah, I think you touched on savings and investments. So I just wanted to ask what are, tips you could give for effective saving and possibly managing an emergency fund. I know savings can be difficult. Say for a student who is not earning much, you are doing shifts back to back, or maybe a professional. So what are tips that you can give on effective savings?
Yes, so that's a very key question, and thank you for bringing that up. Um, One thing about savings or doing anything at all is if you think about the rewards, because if you just feel I'm just saving and you're looking at it as I'm punishing myself or I'm not buying that and that Tesla I want to buy or one fancy thing I want to buy. So it's not fun. But if you think
Mm,
about it like this, I'll give you an example with myself to bring it home. Let's say over a year ago, about a year ago, when I left my salaried job as a doctor, decided, okay, that's it. I'm not doing a salary job again because I was fortunate to be in that position where I can now decide to run my own affairs and deal with what I want because I got to that level of financial freedom. One of the things that made me not to be anxious or worried, one of the main things was having what I call an emergency fund, which you've mentioned.
Yeah.
Having a buffer, just having something that you say, okay, even if everything I'm working on that I'm hoping that might turn out to something or yield income, if it doesn't work out, I have something to fall back on.
Yeah.
So another example I can give you is if, for instance, and nobody hopes for this, if for instance, somebody becomes unwell or you're
Mm,
stressed. Unfortunately, in UK, people get burnt out. Different things happen, and if you decide
mm,
I want to take 3 months break from working, and
mm,
you're not going to be paid for it or whatever. If
mm,
you have that emergency fund, something you can fall back on. So think
yeah.
of saving as a way of trying to save yourself, if you think about it that way. So
Yeah.
saving is trying to, people say saving for the rainy day and all that. It's hard to
Yeah.
imagine when nobody needs umbrella before it starts raining. So if you
Yeah.
have that motivation behind you,
Mm,
then savings becomes easy. But again, I
mm,
tend to say to my colleagues and a lot of people who we help out on moneywisedoctor.com, we
mm,
say don't try to save as a habit. It's
mm,
hard. There are lots of things demanding for your money. It's going to
mm,
fail. So automate it. Automate it. So like
mm.
4 years ago, when we were expecting our little one, I came up with this term I called AMAS. AMAS,
Okay.
like AMASS. So
Yeah.
it's more like an automatic saving system where
Well.
and it's simple as this. Is most people already do it. Is decide that every income coming into this my account, 20% of it or whatever percentage you're happy to do is going into a separate pot. So
Mm-hmm.
some accounts like Metal, if you use a business bank, and some banks will offer it. So as it's hitting the account, that percentage is gone out. You don't even see it. You don't even have to remind yourself to save. So these are simple,
Mm.
simple hacks. And sometimes it looks like it's not very much. I remember as a student, when I was still in Nottingham, you remember in Nottingham,
Yeah.
I think Dr. Yems probably gave me my first cup of tea in the UK. Yeah, welcomed us. Yeah, so as a student, I remember opening an ISA account, which is something I think we'll circle back to at some
Yeah.
point. Yeah,
Yeah.
because something we've been getting a lot of inquiries. And as
Yeah.
a student, an ISA account, I think I was putting I think was it the minimum or the maximum amount there you could put in cash. Sorry, what was that? Help to buy ISA.
Help to
It
buy
was,
ISA.
yeah, I think it
Yes.
was £200. And as a
Yes.
student,
Two hundred
that
pounds.
was a lot of money to me at that point. Yeah, but just having that ISA every month, direct debit 200 every month, direct debit, and when I was buying my first house in the UK, which was within my first year working in the NHS, in fact, it was less than a year working in the NHS. It turned out that that ISA that was just drip, 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 drip your savings now
Yeah.
became, obviously something that formed part of my deposit. And of course,
Wow.
as we can look at ISAs a bit more, um,
Yeah.
it turned out that I also had some extra money from the government because I saved that money. So I
Yeah.
think saving is really, really important as an immigrant. It's not something you want to wait till it's too late. It's something you should start from day one. As long
Yeah.
as you pay off your most expensive debts, next thing is to save.
Yeah. Wow, that's very wonderful. So I guess once you save, you're financially secured, and then I guess you can. It's so easy to invest, which I think would end up leading to a long-term financial stability. So I
Yeah.
think savings kind of forms the foundation, to a financial stability. I guess I can just say that. And yeah, I really love those nuggets. AMAS, I think I'll borrow that acronym, AMAS, and start automate it. I think
Automate it.
that's one nugget. Yeah, automate it. So I think you've touched on house buying already. You bought your house within the first year that you started working in the NHS. So we're going to go into house buying now. What
Okay.
do you think are the challenges immigrants in the UK face when it comes to buying a house or securing a mortgage?
Right. Okay. Another interesting question. Um, Again, this is something we come into every day. We come across every day. Um, I think one thing to think about is, let me give you an analogy. Let's
Yeah.
say you know me, you've known me for some years, and I come to you and I say, Dr. Yams, I like this your camera. Can you lend it to me? And I'm going to return it tomorrow. It's a very
Mm.
expensive camera. You use it for your YouTube, use it for many things. And
Mm-hmm.
but in the past, I've borrowed maybe a smaller camera from you, and I returned it in good condition, and it was even better than when you gave it to me.
Yeah.
What will you be? Will you be happy to give me that camera?
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
you at least consider it. I
Yes.
think you'll probably be favorable. Okay, let us
Yes.
assume that in the past I've borrowed a camera from you. I
Mm-hmm.
did not return it on time. I
Mm.
returned it late. It was still okay. There was a bit of scruffs on it, but I returned it at some point.
Yeah.
So I'd imagine that I probably you might think twice, but you might still say,
Oh
"Oh, I
yes.
will return the camera." Now I'll give you a third analogy, which explains how it is for some immigrants. You've
Yeah.
never met me before.
Mm.
You don't know me. I might
Mm.
even sound, you don't even, I mean, you don't have any information on me. And I come in and say, Dr. Yams, this is a really valuable camera. Can I borrow it? What would be your answer?
Ah, I will. I will have to check who you are. you
Yeah.
know, I want to know more about you before I. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Or you might just say, no, I don't know anything about
Oh yes.
you. We don't
Yes.
know what you've been doing. We don't know
Because you're a
if you borrow
stranger.
cameras, if you return it. Stranger
Yeah.
danger, stranger danger. I'm not giving you my money. So that in a nutshell is what happens. I remember first time I applied for credit stuff. I think I was a student then, and then I applied to, was it a phone? That's why till today I still buy all my every phone in my house, mine, my wife's, everybody, every phone is cash. We Because the first time I tried to buy a phone, and there was this whole you can get them plan and all that, and then they turned me down. I'm like, why? What happened? I'm not owing anybody in this country. I didn't even have a credit card. I've never. And they said, oh, you don't have credit, you don't have any credit history. So it wasn't that I did had bad credit, like the person who did not return the camera on time. It was
Yeah.
that they didn't know my behavior with finances. And
Mm.
even though I had savings, I had everything, but at that point they didn't know. So that taught me something very early. So that when I was going to apply for my first mortgage, and this was like, obviously I'd first come as a student for about a year, and then before I started working in the NHS. So I was less than 3 years in the UK. So
Mm.
my bank that was banking, almost every student in Nottingham then banked with NatWest because they were
Oh
inside.
yes.
Yeah. My bank then said, well, we can't give you a mortgage because you're less than 3 years in the UK. So what did I do? I said, okay, we're going to look at the whole market. But what I
Mm.
did is to try to do something about my credit. So started doing things like, obviously, I got a credit card, then I
Mm.
made sure that I was on the electoral register and all that. So why I told that story is to come down to the main challenges that an immigrant might face is one, you can't get a mortgage because you don't have a credit history.
History.
Not just a credit score, not just logging into an experience. There are like about 9 things that are
Mm.
commonly checked for. We've written quite
Mm.
extensively about them, and other
Mm.
different lenders also check different things. So that's one major issue.
Mm.
Of course, number two is deposit. A lot of times, if you last time we remortgaged one of our properties, rentals, especially during this whole brutal season of high interest rates, the
Yeah.
bank handed 30% at least, 30% equity, which
Wow.
fortunately we had a bit more inside our property. So if you go to some banks and you're coming with 10%, and you know it's good. I mean, with help to buy, people could get on with 5%. But if the market is a bit rough, obviously, if you can add a bit more to your deposit. Even if you can,
Mm.
instead of 5%, you can do 6%, or instead of 10%, you can do 11%. If you can do
Mm.
15, so if you have good deposit, it increases your chances as an immigrant.
Um,
Of course, there's number three thing is make sure you are known. Get on the electoral register is for free. You can do it
yeah.
online. So a lot of times nobody tells. I've had people who have been in this country for a couple of years, 3 years, 4 years. They didn't know they applied for a mortgage and then they get some issues, especially when they've applied directly without using a mortgage
Mm.
advisor, because a mortgage advisor will ask you whether you've done all these things, obviously.
Yeah.
So these are some of the issues I would say. There are other nuanced issues that will depend on each individual's. Obviously, if
Mm.
your expenses, your outgoings is so high, and then you want to get a mortgage on top of it,
Yeah.
the lender might think, well, this person is quite a bit of a risk. But there's one big elephant in the room that we've not addressed yet. For
Hmm.
immigrants, that big elephant is visa. Yeah,
Yep.
that,
Yep.
that that's a big factor. We cannot really skip over it. For
Mm.
instance, I mentioned to you that when I tried to get my first mortgage, the bank had been banking with said, no, you've been in this UK less than 3 years. Now,
Yeah.
again, at some point when I tried to remortgage a property, a bank said, and then obviously we don't want to mention the banks here.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the banks said, you're not settled in the UK, so
Yes. You're not a resident,
yeah,
I'm
so
afraid.
if you're not a permanent resident, so again, you can't blame them. They don't know if you might get the next visa. They don't care if you're a doctor. They don't know. Maybe their numbers don't. They just using computer algorithms to check it. So, but it shouldn't discourage you as an immigrant because those things were not an issue eventually because
Mm.
if one bank will not deal with you, there are another 100 that will deal with you. So if
Yes.
one will not borrow to you because you don't have an ILR or you don't have a citizenship, there's another one that will borrow you. Now, by the time
Yes.
my bank then turned around, when I had now spent 3 years, and I started sending me messages. By then, I turned out to be they have a special program for whatever, their top 2% customers, they called it. By the time they start saying, oh, come and get a mortgage, you don't have a mortgage, we're like, no, thank you. We've already gotten from somewhere else.
There
Yeah,
you go.
exactly. So it's just as an immigrant, if you're not sure, ask questions, get a mortgage advisor. There are people that give free appointments. In fact, the mortgage advisors that have been working sort of like on our platform in moneywise.com, they all at least offer an initial free appointment, and most of them can even take you through the whole mortgage journey without charging you any money. So get advice, talk to people that know what they are doing, and you probably find a way around it, hopefully by God's grace.
Yeah, wow, that is so good. Like, so there's so many things you can do as an immigrant to
Mm,
get a mortgage. So, we've touched on how to build your credit history, get on the elect electoral register, build your
yeah.
credit score, all of that will help you. So, what are those, programs or resources? I know we mentioned ISA initially. What are those programs or resources that are available to immigrants to help them with home ownership in the UK?
Good job. Yeah, well,
Yes.
good job for bringing us back to ISA. Yeah,
Yes.
I think there are quite a few of them and they keep changing. By the time when I was
Mm.
buying my first house, there was help to buy ISA, which was
Yes.
basically you put some money in the bank. Make sure the maximum you could put was £200, and
Yes.
whatever money you save, by the time you're going to buy a house, the government will give you 25% of whatever money you've
Yeah.
saved for free. So if you've saved 1,000, they'll give you 250. If you've saved 4,000, they'll give you 1,000. And I thought that was really nice. I thought,
Yes.
wow, if you've been living in UK for a while, there's no free money. And yeah. But when I was buying my first house, my solicitor wrote to them, and then they gave us the check, and we added it to the whole money. And you know how Tesco says it: every little helps. So when you're
Yes.
buying your house, every little you recently bought one, so
Yeah.
yeah. So even if it's just any little. So that was
Yes.
the source then. And again, there was also help to buy equity where you
Mm.
bring 5%, and then obviously the government brings 20% as your
Yeah.
partner. You guys buy the house together. Again, I
Mm.
used that as well when I was buying my first house. And along the
Yeah.
line, you can buy out your partner, the government, pay them back and say,
Yeah.
okay, bye, and take over the house and all that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But now there are also multiple resources. I think it keeps changing. They keep releasing new policies.
Yeah.
But what I want to stress about, which I think anytime I see someone, you just started working or you moved to the UK yesterday, and I keep sounding it, say take advantage of this because it has a time limit, is the
Yes.
LISA account.
Yes.
You might call it Lisa or Lisa, but
Yes.
LISA, lifetime ISA account.
Yes.
Now, it's for people between 18 and 39 years. So life does not start at 40. Don't
No.
wait, don't wait till you hit 40. Yes. Once you hit 40, you're no longer eligible for that account. So
Yeah.
even if you want to, if you're not sure, just open it and put £1. If you
Yes.
open it and put £1, so it has started counting for you.
Yeah.
Now, what's the LISA account? It's similar to the Help to Buy ISA, but it's just better. It means that every year you have an allowance of up to £4,000 you can put into that account. So even if
Yeah.
it's saving, you can decide to save your money, whatever money you want to save there first before you save anywhere else. If you can save
Mm.
up to 4,000 in a year, you get 25% of that, which is £1,000.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you save less, if let's say you save 1,000, you still get 250. I mean, we don't
Mm.
have to turn this into a mass session, but it's just for every £4 you save, you get £1. So I
Yeah.
think that's quite nice as well. It's one of
Yes.
the schemes that's available. But
Yeah.
the earlier you start it, the better it is.
Yeah. Oh wow, that's so good. We're going to go on a part two. So if you're still watching, Dr. Andy is still here to give us more nuggets. Subscribe, like, share this video with everyone that needs this information. Every immigrant needs this information. Like you heard Dr. Andy said, information is, the key thing you need in this country as an immigrant. You need the right information. You need to connect to the right people to get the right information. So stay tuned for part two. Don't go nowhere. And subscribe, share, like. Thank you. See you shortly.